Hello everybody, I'm Danielle Jameson and welcome to my channel. So Halloween Horror Nights 2019 or Halloween Horror Nights 29 has officially ended, and it's sad because I'm always really sad to see Horror Nights go for another year, but I know that because next year is a big year, I know that they'll be planning something amazing and hopefully, you know, it's gonna be great. So I thought that because this year's event has now officially finished, it would be a really good time to wrap everything up and share my final thoughts with you guys on this. Now, if you haven't guessed from my accent, I just want to very quickly say that I only went to this event four separate times, over the course of a 2-week holiday. If I can go to the event, I will, but I am British, so I can't always get there every single year. But I'm a massive fan of the event, and because I went this year to the Orlando event, I thought that I may as well put a review out on here. So this year's event was a 80s theme, and I absolutely adore the 80s culture. I love the fashion, I love the films, I love the music from that time period. I'm a massive 80s fan. So when I found out that I was able to go to Orlando, Florida for this 80s Halloween Horror Nights event, I was very excited. Firstly, I want to talk about the scare zones for this year's event. My most anticipated scare zone was an arcade, and I really loved that scare zone. That was one of my favourite scare zones. I love the atmosphere around there. Obviously, I'm massive on video games, and that includes arcades. So the arcade culture in that scare zone really was amazing to me. It was my most anticipated scare zone going into the event, and I left and it was definitely my favourite scare zone of the event, without a shadow of a doubt. The only problem I would say with the arcade scare zone was that it was too short. I would have liked to have seen it stretch throughout and have the arcades along the sides of the streets kind of going down a little bit further. I would have just loved that scare zone to be bigger. I loved the scare actors around there, particularly I loved the neon outfits that the scare actors wear. I know that they also wore them over in the chainsaw scare zone over in Springfield, but when they used them in an arcade, it just seemed to really work. As soon as you enter the park, I feel like I was kind of transformed into this other world, and I definitely got massive 80s vibes. Another thing that I will say before I move on to the rest of the scare zones was the music for this year's event. I'm in love with. I actually was trying so hard on YouTube to search and try to find all of the artists that songs were included in this year's event. That's how much I love the music. That was like this massive deal for me, was the music for the event. The thing is, with a lot of these scare zones for this year's event, none of them I found were particularly scary. I think the chainsaw scare zone was really good. I think that they created a great atmosphere. I think the scare actors who were working in that particular area were absolutely fantastic. But a lot of the scare zones for this year's event weren't really all that scary. An arcade, great. Was it a scary scare zone? No. Rob Zombie, I think, was a really good scare zone, mainly just because I think it captured the 80s vibe, like the 80s rocker, really quite well. I love the fact that they had the fire going on the entrance and the exit to the scare zone. I think that really just pumped up the atmosphere even more, and there was always quite a lot of scare actors walking through that area whenever I was going through it. Considering that was actually one of my least anticipated scare zones, that actually came out as one of the scare zones that I liked the most. Vanity Ball, great. I really do like the whole theming to Vanity Ball. But again, it wasn't scary, but the scare actors in there did a great job interacting with guests, and there were a lot of shows going on in that area particularly, so again, I kind of liked that because it was really interacting with the audience. Vikings Undead was another one that I actually quite enjoyed. I think that the outfits for the scare actors were absolutely on point. I absolutely loved the atmosphere around there, and I think that especially on a night time, that scare zone really did get a little bit creepy at times. I would probably say for me personally, the two scare zones that were the creepiest were Vikings Undead and the Chainsaw scare zone over by Springfield. Okay, so I want to briefly talk about Zombieland and that scare zone. First off, I want to compliment the guys who make the props. I really loved the massive prop of the, is it a drop or a launch tower? I can't remember, but it's in the final scenes of the original film where, you know, they're trying to get away from the zombies. It's a really kind of iconic moment from the first Zombieland film, and so I really loved that. But I feel like this scare zone went on for like far too long. I don't know, I just wasn't, you know, when you're not all that keen on something but you're not quite sure why? It was kind of like one of those moments. I enjoyed it. There were always like an insane amount of scare actors in there, but I just feel like, I think it must just be the fact that for me it went on for far too long, and then after a while things kind of got stale when you'd been through it a couple of times and you were just like, right, I've seen that, I've done that. So I would kind of go around it if I could. It wasn't, I don't think, a terrible scare zone. I don't think any of the scare zones for this year were particularly bad, but that one stands out to me as one that could have been a lot better. Like, I hated the Zombieland 2 photo opportunity that was just kind of plonked in the center of the scare zone that I never would see anybody use, so that was a little bit redundant. But I mean, it wasn't bad, it just, to me, it wasn't fantastic. I think honestly what I'd like to see ready for next year's event is them going back to more of the horror roots. A lot of stuff this year wasn't classed as horror, and I know that, you know, it's fun to have like something a little bit more lighthearted, but at the same time I did feel like it lacked houses and scare zones that were genuinely really scary. Next year I'd like to see massive horror icons return to the event, like Jason Voorhees, Michael Myers, Leatherface. Really big icons like that. I'd like to see them return, really. Again, I'm not saying that anything this year was particularly terrible, but that's just my personal preferences. I feel like we've had this year which was a little bit more of a light-hearted take on scares. Next year I'd really like to see them, particularly because it is like the 30th year. I'd like to see them take it up and focus more on the pure horror side of it. Okay, so as you guys can see, I have moved. I'm now downstairs in my front room, mainly because my mum's now upstairs and she's just making a lot of noise. I want to say I think the atmosphere was great for this year's event, and the whole event seemed like a very cohesive package. Nothing felt too out of place. My most anticipated houses leading up to the event were Ghostbusters and Stranger Things, just like a lot of other people, but I was also really wanting to do Jordan Peele's Us. I had a really good run through of Depths of Fear and also Universal Monsters as well, so those two are very much so up there for me. The run through that I had of Stranger Things was, I'm going to admit it, a little bit disappointing, not because I think it's a bad house. I know what that house could have been. It's just, unfortunately, a lot of the times that we went through that house, we just missed so many of the scares. But I know that there are some decent scares in there that unfortunately I missed. so I can't comment too much on Stranger Things as much as I would have liked to. I think the Stranger Things house, I think obviously a lot of time and effort had been put into it. It was obviously one of their big franchises for this year, and a lot of the time wait times were 2 hours, maybe sometimes more, especially on those weekends, Saturday nights. Friday nights as well. It was a bit of a nightmare, but I still enjoyed it when I went through it. I just wish that we'd have gotten more of the scares. The atmosphere in there is great. The set design is amazing. Universal have really just stepped up their game when it comes to the set design and just creating a creepy atmosphere or a scary atmosphere. And so I can't compliment the guys enough who are behind the scenes working on this event, because I think that they did really well this year. And again, I think they did really well, particularly with Yeti. I think also Stranger Things, Killer Clowns. I really loved the set pieces and the set designs in there, and also Ghostbusters too. I think those ones in terms of sets and designs really stood out for me more than the others, but they were all really good in their own way. Graveyard Games is another one that's been really well received for this year's event, and I think Graveyard Games in particular really did complement the 80s theme for the event this year, along with obviously Ghostbusters. I don't think any of the houses were particularly bad. However, the one that really stood out for me was Ghostbusters, and also Universal Monsters really stood out. Me and my mum, I think we must have gotten every single scare in that house. They were just coming at us from all different angles. I just wish that I'd have gotten more scares in the Stranger Things house, but also I loved how they were celebrating their roots a little bit with Universal Monsters. I like the fact that Universal Monsters got a house. I really did like the shows for this year's event, particularly the Lagoon show. I mean, we only got 2 shows for this year, but yeah, the Lagoon show stood out most. That kind of takes like the crown, I guess. I would have really liked to have seen a Icon show, a show, maybe like a Ghostbusters show, especially because I know Universal used to do a Ghostbusters show. This year it lacked an Icon, although it was packed with so many amazing franchises. It did lack a Universal Icon. Halloween Horror Nights 25, Jack the Clown made his return, and then obviously the following year Chance was that year's Icon. And so I don't know, it would have been nice to kind of maybe have an Icon come back for this year, but I'm thinking that next year, because like I say, it's a big like anniversary celebration year, I think they're going to do something big. I think they're going to pull a lot of things out of the bag for next year, and I think that that hopefully would mean that we will see the return of some icons, or at least just one main icon for the year. But overall, I found that this year's event was really good. It flowed really well, it was very cohesive. I think they did really well with set designs, with the houses, with everything really. A lot of it is positive as opposed to negative. What were your thoughts on this year's event? Let me know in the comment section down below. Thank you so much for making it to the end of this video. I know it's been a long one. If you enjoyed it, please make sure to leave it a big thumbs up. And if you're new here, please make sure to go ahead and click on that subscribe button. Thank you so much for watching once again, and I hope to see you in my next video.